All right, we're getting started with Unit 5, and this is on the Roman Empire. In this video, we're going to talk about their geography. Romans had a great advantage because the Italian peninsula was right in the Mediterranean. It gave them direct access to Spain, to Greece, the Middle East, Africa. It plays a big role in getting them started with trade, and they bring in cultures from other places, and they also send their culture to other places. Remember, cultural diffusion, working heavy again. But strategically, it's also a great advantage when it comes to their military conquest. And then later on, it's going to play a huge role in allowing them to spread the Catholic religion to other parts of Europe. Okay, so here's the video, and I've got a couple of other videos worked into it, so I hope you enjoy.
This is the Unit 5 Part 1 video. We're going to be talking about the geography and the mythology of ancient Rome. And we'll also, get into this unit on the Romans, and they're one of the coolest people that we talk about. Here is our SOL, and again, talking about the Roman Empire from 700 BCE to 500 AD, and we're going to be talking about how their geography affected Rome's economic, social, and political development, and also describe the Roman mythology and their religion. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to find your map, and it's right here on your notes. That's page 2 of your notes, and we're going to label your map right here. Okay, so this is the map, and we're going to start off by labeling the Italian peninsula, and you can do this however you want, and remember you can pause the video as many times as you need to. This is the Italian peninsula right here. Okay, so next we want to label the city of Rome itself, and it's like right here on the knee of the boot. Again, where the arrow is pointing is pretty close. Again, it's the knee of the boot. Then you're going to have to draw in the Tiber River, and remember the Tiber River flows south down into the Mediterranean, and it's located again right here, so draw it on your map. And remember, we think of the Italian peninsula as a boot. If you look here, it looks like a boot. And I guess that's water running down the boot. So you can use your own imagination. It's probably not a good thing, but it helps me remember it. Okay, so next up, you're going to draw the Apennine Mountains along the back of the leg right here. So this is the Apennine Mountains. And then up in the north, you're going to draw the Alps right here. As if you couldn't see those big blue triangles popping up on the map. Okay, so then we want to label Sicily. That is the island. The boot is kicking Sicily. It's a good way to remember it. And we'll talk more about Sicily in class. And then we're going to label a couple of the seas that are going to play important roles. One is the Mediterranean Sea, right here. And then we're going to label the Adriatic Sea, and that's right here. Okay, so hopefully you have your map labeled, and we're going to talk a little bit more about mythology and geography. I have a quick video that I want you to see on sort of the origins of Rome according to mythology, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Livy set out to write a brief history of early Rome, celebrating its glories and virtues, propaganda for the reforms of Augustus. What he had to go on were stories handed down over the centuries. They were a mixture of fact and legend. He believed Rome's mythological beginnings would reveal the stories of heroism and nobility Romans needed to hear. But the stories of Rome's origins were short on stoic virtues and long on murder, rape, mayhem, and fratricide. To his dismay, Livy discovered they echoed the cruel realities of the Roman world of his own day. Legends told that Rome was founded by Romulus and Remus, twins who were cast into the wilderness to die. But the boys were said to be saved by a she-wolf who suckled them. They grew up like savages in the woods. When they returned to found the city of Rome, they were filled with the simple, ferocious spirit of their wolf mother. According to legend, Romulus and Remus then led their people to the bend in the river Tiber where she found them. There Rome was born. The year was 753 BC. But hardly had they founded the city than the two brothers quarreled over who should be king. It was left to the augurs to decide. Augurs were the priests of early Rome who divined the will of the gods. They studied the movements of birds, the weather, the entrails of sheep before making their pronouncements, known as the auguries. The augurs placed each brother on a hilltop, then waited. When birds flocked over Romulus, they knew he would be the first king of Rome. But Remus refused the augury, and the brothers fought. Romulus killed him. The first king of Rome walked away furious and triumphant. It was a fitting augury for the bloodshed and strife that lay ahead.
Okay, so after you've watched the video, you know that the whole legend revolves around twin brothers, Romulus and Remus. You know, their uncle wanted them dead. Instead, they were thrown into the river, and they're saved by a she-wolf. Happens all the time. You know, she-wolves are always there to save us. So the brothers lived wild, and they grew up sort of, you know, becoming fierce, and they are considered to be the founders of Rome. And the truth is probably not as interesting as what you saw in the video. We think that Greeks came to the Italian peninsula and to Sicily, and they brought with them their grapes and olives and their alphabet. And out of that, there's several different groups of people and tribes that are going to live there that we'll talk more about when we get into the founding of its city itself. But this mythology is very, very solid and planted into the Roman lore. Now, the Greeks bringing olives and grapes also played a huge role in the way that the Romans grew crops. Again, mountainous terrain, olives and grapes are very, very advantageous for those situations. They also bring their alphabet, which the Romans will adapt to Latin, which will become the base of so many languages throughout Europe, and even plays a big role in our own language with English. Okay, so after watching the video and hearing me talk about that, if you would, analyze the story of Romulus and Remus and why it was a perfect myth to describe the founding of Rome, especially with their violent history. I think it's a good place for you to stop and think about it. Alright, so let's talk about the geography really, really quickly. The Italian peninsula is ideally located. It is in the center of the Mediterranean Sea, which sort of makes it, just a great spot to launch for trade and their conquest. They control trade in the entire region. They can go to Africa, to the Middle East, to Greece, to Spain very, very easily. 3/4 of the land is covered with mountains on the Italian peninsula, and again the Greek crops played a big role in helping them with that. The Alps provided natural protection for them from the rest of Europe. You can see up at here with them, you can see the snow caps on top of the Alps. And the Mediterranean Sea provided protection, but it also provided great trade and a great place to launch militaries from. Here is the Italian boot, and you can see you have Spain over to the left, you have Greece to the right, Africa is just to the south, and you can see the island of Sardinia and Sicily also to the south. Okay, so now on your notes, what I would like for you to do is where the arrow is pointing, defend the position that Rome was the perfect location to dominate trade in the Mediterranean. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about their religion. The first thing is that the Romans had a lot of similar beliefs to the Greeks and the Egyptians, and they believed in a lot of different signs. For example, they believed that there were people who could predict the future. These people were called soothsayers, and Romans would often listen to their predictions and base their lives around either trying to make or not make these predictions happen. Now, they also believed in other signs that happened in nature. For example, they might watch the way that birds were flying. If they were flying in a clockwise direction, it was good. If they're flying in a counterclockwise, it might not be good. If you're getting ready to go to war and an eagle flew over, dude, that was a great sign. If it was a buzzard, you might want to fight a different day. And then they did some really cool stuff. Some of their priests would cut open animals, and the way their entrails would spill out, they would predict the future based on this. I think that's pretty cool, don't you? Now, the one big aspect that I want you to learn about the Romans is that they adapt their religion from so many of the other cultures in the region. For example, they took the Greek gods and they turned them into their own gods, and they gave them different names. Now, some of them kept the same name. For example, Apollo, the Greek god, stayed Apollo in the Roman, but many of the gods were changed. For example, Zeus became Jupiter. Ares became Mars. Hermes, the messenger for the Greeks, became Mercury. So I hope what you're getting from this is that, yeah, they sort of adapted those gods, but those gods in Roman names also served a purpose for us, and that we named the planets in our solar system after the Roman name for these gods. Alright, so here's a picture of Jupiter just to give you an example. He's holding lightning bolts and he's throwing them down. So very much like Zeus, except he's Jupiter. Okay, so what I would like for you to do now is create a theory as to why the Romans adapted so many gods from other cultures. I'll give you a hint. It's that CD word showing up again, and you'll do that right here on your notes. The big ideas of this video. The first one was that the Italian peninsula gave the Romans the ideal spot to dominate trade in the Mediterranean region. And because of that, their culture will also diffuse to other places. That's going to play a big role, especially when we get to the Catholic Church. And the other thing is that the Romans borrowed their gods and religious beliefs from the people that they came into contact with through trade and conquest. And again, that's going to play a huge role later on in the unit. Okay, hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you're keeping up with your notes.